All right, guys, welcome to the next session of our AWS Solution Architect training. Today, we are going to be looking at Network Load Balancer. Before we look at Network Load Balancer, I feel that we must have seen where we are standing today. We have looked at uh, Classic Load Balancer. We have looked at Application Load Balancer. Today we are looking at Network Load Balancer. This is the third type of load balancer, network load balancer. Okay. Let me see where my demonstration board is. Okay. Follow up with me here, please, and understand what is happening here. This is your network load balancer. These are your machines. This is machine 1 and this is machine 2, right? This is machine 1 and this is machine 2. Now, machine 1 is configured such that it is having a saver which is opening to port 80. Machine 1 is configured and is having a saver which is open to port 80. Machine 2 is configured that is having a saver which is open to port 8080. Machine 2 is configured and is open to port 8080 while machine 1 is open to port 80. Please, when I was doing my own training, I did not understand this thing. So try and follow up very well. Machine 1 is having a saver that is open to port 80. Machine 2 is having a saver that is open to port 8080. Now, inside machine 1, we are going to open two ports at the level of the security group, the port 80 and the port 8080. Because if we do not open port 80, the machine 1 cannot have access to the internet because it is open to port 80. Now, why are we opening port 8080? Because we want to use one and the same security group for the two machines, right? So in the second machine, we are going to use port 8080. And then in the security group, we are going to open port 8080. So the first machine uses port 80, second machine uses port 8080. So why are we talking about application load, network load balancer? Network load balancer is that type of a load balancer that will route traffic with respect to a particular port, which means if you configure the load balancer that route me traffic to every instrument that is open with the port 8080. That means every information that is coming, every traffic information that is, every network that is passing towards port 80, that load balancer will route information to that particular tool. It can be a printer, it can be a computer, it can be a camera, it can be anything. It can be anything. Okay, if you route the traffic that get access to this particular appliance, insofar as that appliance is having the port that you have configured in your load balancer here, then that load balancer will be able to get access to that appliance. So the load balancer does not care what is installed inside the appliance. It doesn't care which operating system is running inside the appliance. All it cares is that if the security group of that appliance 8080 or any particular one that you are going to do, you can say 2050, you can say 3040, you can give anything, but make sure that you configure that the same thing that you give here is the same thing that you are going to give here. So the load balancer will route traffic with respect to whatever port that you are going to give. So how are we going to create this thing? We are going to create one EC2 machine, open port 80. EC2 machines always have port 80 open by default. We'll create a second EC2 machine and change the port 80 to port 8080. And then we'll create now a security group. In that security group, we are going to open 3 ports. The first port will be port 22, which is the normal SSH port. The second one will be port 80, which is the normal web server port by default. And then the third port will be port 8080, which is the one that we are going to customize. This one is our own that we are going to customize. So we are going to create this security group with those three ports. Then when we create the machine, we create a security group. Then we create now a target group. This is a target group. And when we'll be creating this target group, we are going to create the target group with different ports. The first target group is going to be created with port 80. The second target group is going to be created with port 8080. Why is the second target group being created with port 8080? Because the server where that target group is going to be functioning is open to port 8080. Why is the first target group created with port 80? Because the server is functioning with port 80. So, mind you, if you create a server that is functioning with port 80, the security group of that server must have a port 80 open, and the target group of that server must have a port 80 also open. After you create all these two things, then we are going to come now and create our network load balancer and link to our target group. So this is the architecture the way it is. You create your machine, you create your security group, you create your target group, you link your target group to your machine, and then you create your network balancer, and then you link your network load balancer to your target group, right? You link it to your target group. So now that, what are you going to do? You are going to use now your DNS of your network load balancer, and then you have access directly to this machine. You are going to use the DNS of this one, then you have access to this machine or this machine. That means you are going to be fluctuating between the two machines. So a normal question that will come at the level of architecture is that what? You are trying to create an architecture. You are creating the network of let's say a supermarket. You are trying to create a network of a supermarket. Inside that supermarket, there is the management system of that supermarket. Now, that management system of that supermarket is installed inside a server. That server is open to port 80. And then they have installed cameras in that supermarket. Those cameras are open to port maybe 2030. Now, they ask you that they want you to link the camera in the other server, in the server of port 2020, to the management system in port 8080. Which type of load balancer are you going to use? You are going to say that you are going to use network load balancer because it routes traffic with respect to ports. Application load balancer route traffic with respect to content. We said this. Application load balancer route traffic with respect to content, while network load balancer route traffic with respect to ports. So this is the difference between the two of them. So let's get to the lab and start creating. Okay, we create our first machine and we call it machine 1. It's going to be a Linux machine, T2 Micro. Now here, look up very well. We are going to create a new security group. Why are we creating a new security group? Because we want to open port 8080 in that new security group. This is a new security group that we are going to create, this one like this. We want to open port 8080 in that our new security group. The security group that I have in my system, they don't have port 8080 open. So I want to create a new security group where I'm going to open port 8080. How should I open that port 8080? Look up very well. SSH must be open because we are using Linux. So SSH is open by default. Let me give the name of that security group. I give the name of the security group Network Security Group. Network SG. All right. I copy my network security group. I put it as it is also the description. Now, what do I do here? The SSH port is already open. This is the first port that must be open when we are talking about Linux. SSH port must first be open. That is no discussion about it, because if the SSH port is not open, you will never be able to get into that system. That's the first one. The second thing that must be open is I have to add another security group rule. Which one is that one? HTTP. I have to add HTTP with port 80. You see that when you put HTTP, port 80 is already open without any problem. I want to add another one again. Which one is that one? Port 8080. But port 8080 is not a particular defined port. It is a custom port, right? So port 80, take network from anywhere. I add the next port, which is now custom port. Which type of custom port? Custom TCP port. You discover that when I added HTTP, 80 came out automatic. But custom TCP port, there is no range. You see, port range, there is nothing. So I am the one now to put 8080 there. Okay. It doesn't mean that it should always be 8080. You can put anything. You can put any figure there. Just make sure that you will configure the same figure at the level of your server. All right. So I put my port 8080. Custom source type. Take information from anywhere in the internet. Okay. So look at this place very well. I've opened port, the SSH port, which is the default port. I've opened the HTTP port, which is 80. I have opened the custom TCP port, which is 8080. This is what I have been saying here. I opened SSH, I opened port 80, I opened port 8080 in this security group like this. Okay. Now, the next thing for me to do is I want to use my Bootstrap in creating my server. This is my Bootstrap. In my Bootstrap, this is what will be written there. Okay. Welcome to the first trial of creating a web page. All right, that is what I'm going to write there. I copy my Bootstrap. I put. I launch my machine. What is going to happen? This first machine is created. Now, question. Where is this 80 that is inside here? When did we configure this 80? That's the question that you can ask, right? You have seen where we have put this 8080. You have seen where we have put this other 80. Have you seen where we have put this 80? No. You have not seen where we have put this other 80 inside here. Where have we put the 80? The 80 is by default. Look at the Bootstrap that we are having here. We are going to install a particular web server, the HTTPD web server. This web server like this. This is a web server that we are installing. Okay. When you install this web server, it comes with the default port 80, right? When you install this web server, it comes with the default port 80. So for server 1, we will have this default port 80 when we install the web server. Okay, so it is already done. Now we are going to create the second machine where we will have enough configuration that we are going to do. This one now is machine 2. It's still a Linux machine, T2 micro. I take my normal key pair. Now, when I was creating machine number 1, I created a new security group. Now, I am creating machine number 2. I can use that same security group that I created for machine number 2. Look at this same security group is in need of port 80, 80, 80, 80, 80, 80. So I can use this same security group here. Okay, I can use this same security group like this here. It has no problem. So I will come back and create and use this existing security group. What was the name of that security group? It was network security group. That's it. Now I add my bootstrap. Now, when I'm adding my bootstrap, I take down this one. Look at the first bootstrap. It is saying that first EC2 machine. This one is saying that second trial. Okay, so I copy my bootstrap. I paste. Mind you, this bootstrap is going to install a server that has a port that is open at 80. But what I want is a server that should be open at port 8080. So what will I do to make this second machine have a server that is open at port 8080? I will show you where they configure that particular file, where the server is located. Let's go look at your notes. This is your note. These are the steps. If you want to change the port, that server is found, that particular port is found in this file. We call it the config file, the config folder. When we enter the config folder, we will see httpd.conf file. It is inside this file like this that we are going to change the configuration and make it have port 8080. So let us log into our second machine. We are logging into our first machine. We don't need to be logged into our first machine because it is already having port 80. So we need to log but into our second machine. Let's first of all test whether the servers are running well. Server number 1. You see that the server is running very well. Now we test server number 2. You see that the server number 2 is running very well. Okay, that means our servers are well configured. Now, why are the two of them running at port 8080? Because we are just from installing it and all of them are having port 8080. Now we want to change this server number 2 to be running at port 8080 instead of port 80. So what do? We log into server number 2. How do we log in? I want to log in using PuTTY. Let me use the updated version of PuTTY. So I'm logging in with server number 2. All right, let me try to make it big for you. Log in as EC2 user. Now, when I log in as EC2 user, what do I want to do? Let me change to super user. Now, inside super user, the folder, I would have just run this command and go there, but I would like you to be used to running commands one after the other. We are going to first of all move to the etc folder. From there, we'll move to the httpd folder. From there, we'll move to the conf folder before we will see the file that we will see this file, httpd file. So let's move one step after the other. We'll move first of all to cd etc, right? This is the first place that we move. ls, what are we going to move the second place? To the httpd. Let's look for where there is httpd. The httpd folder, where should be h? Okay, that is it. httpd folder, right? So we move there. cd httpd. We are there. ls. From there now we move to the conf file. This is a conf file. This is it. So we move to cd conf. We are now in the conf file, ls. Now we see that ls gives us httpd.conf. So we open our .conf file with the vi editor, httpd.conf. Now, when we are here, we press enter. It changes to insert mode. You bring it down. Your mouse will not work here, please. You use the arrows up and down. Your mouse will not work. You come down until you will see listener. Listener, it tells you this is where the port is being configured. So here it is listening by default. You see, by default it was listening to port 80. So we want it to be listening to port 8080, right? You change it to 8080 hyphen, and then you quit. A normal question is, which folder has, or which file has the configuration of the port numbers? It is the conf.http.conf file. That is the file that is having the configuration for the port numbers. Now we have done that. What do we need to do? We need to restart the server. Okay, we need to restart the server. Restart the server by running service httpd restart. So I'll run my service httpd restart. It runs successfully. Okay, I have changed. Now look at what will happen here. In machine number 2, when I used to copy the IP address and paste, it will show me my IP, my my web server. But now I am pasting, it is not showing. Why is it not showing? Because I have changed the port. And since I have changed the port, I need to specify the new port that I have changed. And the new port is, you put 8080 colon 8080. Now when you put now colon 8080, your new page will come out. Your page will come out, right? You see that it is the second page. While the first page does not need 8080, the second page need 8080. Now we have two servers. Now we have two servers, this one and this one. One is listening to port 80, another one is listening to port 8080. But we want to place a network load balancer to be able to match the two servers together, merge the two servers together. How are we going to go about it? First thing first, we create our target group. Okay, that is where we begin. First target group that we are going to create is going to have port 80. Second target group that we are going to create is going to have port 8080. So we link them to these machines, and then we create a network balancer and link them to these target groups. Okay, so let's get hit and start creating our target group. We go down and we start creating target group. Create target group. Give the name of your target group. This one is first target. My first target is I'm targeting an instance, target type, instance. I'm targeting a particular instance. That instance should have which port? The instance is having port 80. Okay. All of this is configured automatic. Create. My protocol is, please, you should have your protocol here should be TCP. Your protocol should be TCP. Network load balancer functions with the TCP protocol. Please don't use HTTP. Network load balancer functions with the TCP protocol. Okay, you create. Excuse me, please. I've forgotten to create first target. TCP health check. So this is where you put your health checks. And you have your healthy threshold. You can allow it the way they are for your practice session, but when you are in the industry, please make sure you configure it as required by the company. Okay, it is created. What are we trying to do now? We are trying to register our target group to our instance. Take a look here. When you create a target group, you have to link the target group to this instance. So that's what we are doing. How do we do that? Let me cancel and do it again. We have created the first target. So how do we link it? Actions, you select the target, actions, register target. Then you come down here. You'll be able to register your target. That first target is targeting the first machine. This is it, machine 1. Target machine 1 and then save. So machine 1 is having 80, it saves. Now we create the second target group. Target 2, internet facing, TCP port. Everything looks good. We create and then we select the target, action, We link to machine number 2. We add to registered, and then we save. Machine number 2 on port 8080, please. Machine number 2 runs on port 8080. And then we save. For target 1, we register it. We link to machine 1, port 80. Good. And then we save. Good and fine for us. This is where we are standing. We have created our instance. We have changed the port of the second instance. We have created 2 target groups, one with port 80, another one with port 8080. The last thing now is to create our network load balancer. So we create our network load balancer now. We come back to load balancer. This is network load balancer, please. Network load balancer you create. Give the name of your load balancer. Web balance. That's the name I'm giving. It's listening to TCP port 80. All right. Choose all your subnets. Configure your target groups. Existing target groups. Take first target, right? First target, and then advanced health check. You can configure everything here. You know everything about health checks. And then you register. The port is okay. You preview everything, and then you create. All right. What have you done? We have just created a network load balancer, and while creating the network load balancer, we linked it to the first machine. Okay, while creating the network load balancer, we linked it to the first machine. Now we are going to edit the network load balancer and link it to the second target group. Okay, we have linked it to the first target group, which is linked to this machine. We are going to link it now to the second target group, which is linked to this other machine. So we edit our listeners. Click on your load balancer, edit your listeners. Add a listener. See, down here, please, there is only one listener, so add a listener. Now, the first listener was listening at port 80. This new listener, now you cannot add 2 listeners listening at the same port. So we have to change the name of the port, which is port 8080. And this one is which one? You are forwarding the traffic to which machine? It should be target 2. That is the second. That is the second target group. This one, port 8080, target 2. So we have forwarded the traffic to target 2. We say add listener. The listener has been added. We are already having target 2 added. We have completed our job. We have constructed this architecture like this. Remember I said we are solution architects. We are constructing an architecture. So this architecture, they came and told us that we should build a web server, one with port 80, another one with port 8080. We put a security group around them, security group should have the same port that can access the server. We build a target group and attach a load balancer that can control all of them. We have finished our architecture. That is what we are asked to do. So now what do we do? Our load balancer is still under, the state is still provisioning. We are waiting for it to be active, and then we see whether it works. Sometimes you build all these things like this, when you are about to start launching, nothing works. So when you finish building, don't start hitting your chest that everything you have built everything. Okay, what do? We take the DNS. Here is the DNS. Copy the DNS and try to see whether what you have done has worked. Put colon 8080. Let's see whether it works. Sometimes it takes time to come up. Let's just be patient and see if it works. It's taking a lot of time, showing that either it is still booting the system, or we have done something wrong. And you know where all your configurations are. You have your target group. Damn it. Our two target groups are listening to the same port. That is bad. Did you see that? Our two target groups are listening to the same port. First target is listening to port 80. Second target is listening to port 80, which is bad. It is not supposed to be true. So we have to configure this other target group to be listening to this other target group has to be listening to port 8080. Which one is that? Target group number 2. You need to listen to port 8080. Our target group has to be listening to port 8080. You see, it is showing here that it is there is one unhealthy configuration that we have done, which is wrong. So this target group is not supposed to be listening to port 80, it's supposed to be listening to port 8080. So how do we do that? Currently in use by the web. So you cannot delete a target group. You can only configure it. Let's edit a target group attribute. No, not the attributes. Okay, this is what happened. We had a situation where we had two of them. So we had to remove one. Save. Okay, it is functioning now. So we see that with our target group now, it is possible for us to gain access to our web server. So when you put your DNS and you put 80, you are going to go to first web server. This is it, first trial. That means we are in the first server. That means at this particular moment, we are routing traffic here because we have put 80. We are routing traffic here. And then when we change it to 8080 colon 8080, we will be routing traffic now to the second server. This is it, second server. We'll be routing traffic now to this other one here. Okay, we are routing traffic here. All right, so that is all about network load balancer. Anybody has a question, you ask quickly. Let me show you how they delete it. Let me show you how they delete, how when you finish you delete your tools. You first start by deleting. Remember that you started by creating target groups before you created load balancer. So you start by deleting the load balancer first. You delete the load balancer first. It's selected, actions, delete. After deleting the load balancer, you come now to the target groups, select the two of them, action, delete, yes. After you must have deleted the two target groups, you come now to your instances, select your machine 1 and machine 2, and then action, state, terminate the instance. That is how you delete your tools. Okay, that's how you delete them. Anybody has a question? Your notes will be available tomorrow in the afternoon. I hope we are following up all the past lessons, please. All right, in the absence of no question, see you guys tomorrow. Good night.